Welcome to Morrison Madness. I'm Don.
I'm Lachelle.
So our last episode was a continuation about the house fire.
Well, the last one recorded. I don't know that these will go in succession. So
right, but we just decided to keep talking about them.
Right.
To keep talking about it to try and give it some continuation.
Yes.
So we left off with us just getting out of quarantine.
So we should clarify this in case you're listening or what have you, and this is your first one. This is House Fire Part 3.
Yes, you should go back and listen to Part 0, 0.5.
No, there is no 0,
Lion
0.5.
King 1.5.
Oh. Go back and listen to House Fire Part 1 and Part 2, and before you do that, listen to Too Much Dawn. Because there's always too much Dawn. In any case, welcome to Morrison Madness.
When me and my kids are involved, you don't know. It could be a prequel like Revenge of the Clones.
Oh. Probably, knowing us, we'll have to create a prequel to this. But so far, there is not a prequel. This is Part 3 of Part 1, 2, and 3. And I'm sure there will be more after Part 3 because there's a lot to this story.
Yeah, I don't know how much we'll get into all of it. But yeah, so we finished off mid-April, right? So
we had just gotten released from quarantine from the coronavirus.
And I'm setting up meetings with the new adjuster, whose name was Joe. And again, Joe, very nice guy, easy to work with, easy to talk to.
Yep.
And then the fire investigator, whose name was...
Through the insurance company. The fire investigator through the insurance company.
Correct.
Yep.
A private fire investigator, whose name was Stacy. So we went and
his
met...
last name was Stacy?
No, his first name.
His first name was Stacy.
Right.
Okay.
His last name was...
That's okay.
La Fuenete? Some French something or other.
There's few males that are called Stacy, and so you were
Stacey
saying
Keach.
he. Who?
He's a famous actor.
Oh, sure. Okay. I don't.
It's like saying there's few males named Marion.
Well, yes. But in any case, you were saying he, and then you said Stacy, and I have a cousin that's female that's Stacy, so then my mind went to a female, so I was clarifying.
Stacy's mom is guy. Yeah, is a guy. His name is Stacy. And Stacy was very nice and very friendly and very easy to work with. Not attacking in any way. He was very professional. So it does throw you for a loop, though, when you are being investigated by a forensic investigator about a fire on a property that you own, and they look you dead in the eye and say, "Did you start the fire?" No.
Nope. Yeah, and you even asked if he wanted to interview me, and he didn't think that was necessary.
Right.
So.
Which I thought was weird. He did say, if I have any follow-up questions, I'll.
Right. But he wanted to interview you and the boys, and then he would decide from there, and then, I never needed
So we gave him the timeline of everything that happened, and he talked to each one. He talked to us together, but then he really questioned us separately.
Right.
The first few questions were kind of together about the date kind of thing, but then we separated all of us and talked to each one of us individually, which is fine. I mean, that's normal. That's what I would expect.
Absolutely.
I didn't feel like that was... anything shady or underhanded. That to me seems how you would do something, because you don't want me answering for Dolan or Devin answering for me, or and you want to make sure that everybody's stories
line up,
are similar enough that you don't feel like they're made up, kind of thing. And so he did that, and then he went back and did his forensic thing, and I feel like maybe he had to come back one time.
And clarify some.
And do some more forensic stuff. And then once he had all of his forensic results, then he had more questions for me and Devin, I think. I don't think he had more questions for Dolan.
Could be. I wasn't really involved.
But I don't remember exactly, because there was so much going on with so many different people. But I know for sure that I did talk to him a second time. And that wasn't... So again, this is... the third week in April. I feel like it was the beginning of May before I heard back from him.
Could be.
About stuff.
And meanwhile, even though we're out of quarantine, we had the coronavirus enough to where we were still sleeping sometimes 15, 20 some hours a day, yet 5 weeks out from being diagnosed with the virus.
Yes, I would go out and mow the lawn, because I hadn't mowed the lawn in a month.
Right.
And the next day I was just exhausted and slept for the majority of the day. I don't know if I was sleeping 20 hours a day, but easily 16 hours a day.
Right.
And so the worst part was going back over to the house and being in that smoke.
Right.
Within 15 minutes of being in there, I'm just coughing up a storm and dying. I couldn't hardly be in the place.
Right.
So trying to get the inventory done was impossible.
And part of that is the smoke was bad enough to begin with, but then again, because of the coronavirus, you developed asthma.
Right.
And even now, if you're around someone who's just smoking a cigarette or something that way, we both overreact to it. I had already overreacted to it before the coronavirus. Now it's 10 times worse.
Yes.
It's very difficult for us to be around smoke in any shape, form, what have you. So it's very hard to go through the stuff at the house that smells smoky and what have you.
Well, and as you're walking around, you're kicking up all the soot and dust and everything else. Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
So the next week would have been like the last kind of week of April, right? So 4/28.
Okay. Yeah.
Did it say in the calendar that I had a meeting over there?
Yeah. Yes.
So
I think so. On 4/28. No. It doesn't say in your calendar.
Okay, I thought it did. I for some reason I had to go over there for something, and I could have swore it was because I had to meet with one of the insurance people over there for something. Are you on 2020 or are you on 2021?
Oh, you know what? I'm probably on 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's back that up.
So I
that
go
means
over there.
the date in the other one was probably wrong because it was probably.
Anyway, I go over to the house and I'm meeting with somebody over there to deal with this insurance stuff, and I realized that.
So the 28th would have been a Sunday.
Okay, so then it must have been like the 29th.
Okay.
And I realized that the dumpster is gone. You're looking at April.
Yes.
And I guess I didn't really think anything of it. And then the next day when I went back, I realized that the temporary electrical box was gone.
Never mind. It jumped. It jumped on months for me. So, yes, you went over on Tuesday, the 28th of April in 2020. I'm sorry. Okay.
And so then I'm calling ServPro trying to find out where the dumpster is, where's the electricity, and I'm not hearing anything from them.
Right.
At all.
Right.
Until May 1st.
Right.
May 1st, or not May 1st. May 1st. I got an email saying...
Which was a Friday.
...that Scott Schuster had called ServPro and canceled ServPro. Now,
Yes.
Here's the thing. Scott Schuster works for the insurance company. He didn't hire ServPro.
Correct.
I hired ServPro.
But he called them and told them that he would not pay for anything. The insurance company would not pay them.
Doesn't matter. I hired them. They didn't contact me and ask me if I was going to pay to have that stuff there.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
They just took all their stuff out.
Yep.
So now there's no electricity in the house, which means there's no sump pumps working in the basement.
Yep.
And it's raining.
Yep. Because it's a heavy spring.
And the basement is flooded.
Yep.
And I called all around trying to find an electric company that would put in a temporary panel, and nobody would do it.
No, nobody would touch anything because of the house fire and
the insurance company and
right.
all of that kind of stuff. Yep. And the one company that said that they could put a panel up in the garage and have a meter hooked up to the garage, and I would have to work with Mid-America, said it would cost between $2,000 and $3,000.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't afford that. That's ridiculous.
Right.
So then I find out it wasn't until that point that I know any of this crap is going on May 1st.
Right.
So then it's not until the next week that I can actually get a hold of Scott Schuster.
Yeah, because you didn't get the information until like 4 o'clock on that Friday.
Right. So it's not until the next week that I can get a hold of him, and he informs me that, yeah, they have decided that they're not responsible for paying
right.
for anything. They're not going to pay for the fire. They're not the house to fix it. They're not going to pay for the contents. They're not going to pay to put the boys up anywhere.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yep.
And I'm trying to ask him what this is based on, and he's telling me he doesn't have to give me that information. They'll send out a report.
Yep.
the adjuster, I call him. He has no idea. It's as news to him. He doesn't know what's going on. I call the private investigator. He says, I don't know what to tell you, Don. From my findings, it doesn't have anything to do with anything that I found.
Right. He said, I can't tell you specifically, but I can tell you that I did not find fault with you and that it should not be from...
Or the boys.
Right. That I did not find the fault with you or the boys, that you had anything to do with the fire, so it should not be from my report that they're making this decision.
Right. And so, I feel like the week before I had emailed my lawyer and asked her if she had any experience with this kind of stuff, and she did. And then I talked to her on the phone, and we hadn't decided yet whether or not we wanted to go down that route and have to have an attorney involved. And then when all of this came about, then we're like, well, yeah, apparently we have no choice but to have an attorney involved.
Yep.
So we got nothing back from them for all of May.
Yeah, we didn't hear anything, but we had to move the boys out of the hotel because, again, we were just paying that out of pocket. And I'm like, we can't afford a $700 a week bill for the boys to stay in a hotel that's not going to get reimbursed.
It wasn't $700. It was $365 a week. Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. You have a better memory about money stuff than I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
When they first quoted you, they said that if you book it out for a month at a time, they could lower it, and it was I don't think it got down to $300, but it was going to be cheaper. And then because we didn't know how long the boys were going to be there, because we kept thinking the insurance company was saying that they needed to get put into a long-term apartment, and we said, okay, let us know like what we need to do to make that happen.
No, the insurance company never said that. I went to the insurance company later on.
Okay, but originally we didn't know how long the boys were going to have to stay in the hotel. So we didn't want to book it for a full month and pay up because we had to prepay for the month kind of thing. And you didn't want to do that.
Right.
So then because we were paying per week, we didn't get any kind of discount then.
Right. But they were there until the end of May.
Right.
So, again, from the beginning of May until June, we're not hearing anything from the insurance company about anything.
Right.
And so at that point, we, decided to get an attorney and have an attorney be involved. And then I feel like sometime in June, I don't remember exactly the exact date, but sometime in June, I finally get something from Scott Schuster, either an email or a letter in the mail, and I call him. And again, he's immediately attacking me, and I'm driving somewhere.
Yep.
So
I think he called you. You had called him and left a message, and then he called you back while you were driving.
His previous phone calls were so bad that we had started recording them. Mm-hmm. And yes, this point he called me. I was on my way to Grinnell, and he called me because I was going to pick up Devin.
Right.
And he called me, and he started screaming and yelling at me because I said, I'm not really sure why you're attacking me and why you're, accusing me of stuff. And he just went off the rails. And finally he screamed into the phone, I'm done talking to you. I'm not talking to you anymore. I will only talk to your attorney from now on. And he hung up on me.
Yep. And
so for the next, I don't even know how long, 3 to 6 months.
6 months.
Everything had to go through the attorney.
Right.
So every contractor that we talked to.
And in that time, and like over that 6 months, towards the end of that 6 months, he started contacting you directly. He started emailing you, and then he called you directly.
Yes.
And you even said, you need to speak to my attorney. You were the one that said you wouldn't speak to me. You need to speak to my attorney. And then he came back and said, I'll work with Don if he'll be civil or something along those lines, trying to say that it was your fault that all this happened in the first place.
So every contractor that we contacted and showed, and we went through 5 different contractors, and we showed them the adjuster's notes on, what it would cost to fix everything. Only one out of the 5 said, yep, he could do it for that. And he was a contractor from outside of Johnson County.
Yep.
Didn't know anything about
the
codes.
City codes.
And that the house would have to be brought up to code and all of that stuff.
Right.
All of the other ones said, there's absolutely no way the house would have to be torn down and rebuilt. There's no way that the house could be fixed.
Right.
And the insurance company just insisted that this one contractor said he could do it. So that's what they were going off of.
Right. And then you said, okay, fine. Then we can hire that guy. And then he said, nope, because at that point, was it the derecho that had happened or what have you? And so then no longer could he get materials, and he was booked solid with stuff from other jobs that needed to be done.
Well, and not only could they not get materials, and he was booked solid, but the price on materials skyrocketed. So his original estimate that he had done
no longer stood.
Yep. And he said, there's no way I could do it for that now.
Right. So then he came back and said, I can't do it. And even if I could do it, I can't do it for like 6 to 9 months.
Right.
And so when we went back to the insurance company with that, the insurance company again tried to blame you.
Right.
Saying
because
that
I'm
you
the
were
one
delaying it.
Because I'm the one who said that the insurance company didn't have to pay me for the loss.
Right.
It wasn't them that said, oh, we're not going to pay.
Right.
Yeah. They weren't dragging their feet on anything.
Right.
So now we're into winter, and I feel like there's no movement on anything because I'm trying to find a contractor.
And we had done stuff just so it's a little clear too, because this is one of the complaints of the insurance companies, that we weren't doing anything for the house this whole time. And we had been trying to do stuff. You even went out and bought a generator.
Yes.
To try and have some light and things that way so you could work in the house. Because again, there's no electricity. There's no way to turn lights on to even see stuff. To be able, and there's no running water, so it's hard to try and clean anything over there. It's a nightmare.
And to clarify, this is a brand new generator.
Brand new generator.
Right? And I take it over there and try and use it, and it doesn't work.
It would not run.
Right.
It would turn on and then die right away.
Yes, it would constantly kick off. So I take it to get it fixed, and then derecho happens, and then they're swamped with chainsaw stuff, and they can't get parts for this generator. The carbon monoxide sensor was bad in it.
Right.
And it needed a new one. And it took them 4 weeks?
Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. Before
just to get the part in.
Right, before they could even fix it.
Right. And it was under warranty, so it didn't cost me anything. But then I don't have the generator.
So there's nothing we could do over there.
Right.
Because we couldn't see at this point. I mean,
well, I could go over there a little bit in the day and work in the front part of the house, but I couldn't work in the back house part of the house or the basement at all.
No.
So I tried going over there with flashlights, but again, I could only work over there a little bit, and then I would start having an asthma attack.
Yes.
And at this point, the
boys... And
boys...
you're wearing N95 masks and all of that kind of stuff like you're supposed to, and it still isn't helping.
And at this point, both the boys have jobs, and they're working, and we've gotten them into apartments. And so, I mean, they're only available to help me a little bit, one day a week here and there.
Yeah, and their schedule doesn't match with your schedule or each other's schedules, and it was a logistical nightmare.
Yes. And so, I don't even remember. Finally, I feel like in January, the insurance company finally said that they would raise the level of actual cash value of the house that they were paying for the house.
Well, they came back, I don't think we clarified, or maybe you did and I missed it, but they clarified sometime, was it in July or August, that they came back and said, oh, yeah, no, actually, we will pay for the damages.
You're right. We didn't clarify that. And that was in August, I think.
Yeah, so from May until August, we didn't have any, the insurance wasn't going to cover anything. And so it wasn't until August that we got reimbursed for the boys staying in the hotel and stuff like that. It was, so we, again, not only do we've spent a bunch of extra money for helping the boys out because they didn't have any savings kind of thing to stay in a hotel and whatever. And the coronavirus happened, everything shut down. So we didn't have our regular gigs. We didn't have our extra income coming in kind of thing. And we're still super sick. So I'm not actually getting a whole lot done on my job. Even though I still had my job, thank goodness, with the university. I'm not really working like I should be because I'm so sick on stuff. So we were strapped for cash and time, and everything just was a nightmare.
Yes. To the point where I had taken a job working at a hotel, and then they ran out of PPP money and let half their staff go.
Right.
And it was another 2 months before I got another job, again, working at a hotel.
Right.
There was something else I was going to say about what you just said.
So part of this
when they came back, they said that the reason that they initially denied the claim was because it was a rental property. I said it absolutely wasn't a rental property. It hasn't been a rental property for at least 4 years, I think.
Right.
And you can check with the city.
And we got the
because you have to have a permit to rent your house out in Iowa City.
Right, and we got this insurance specifically after it had been a rental property and it was no longer a rental property. We reinsured it in a different way because it was our property and our relatives, our boys, your boys, were staying in it.
And they wouldn't insure the property unless I put a brand new roof on the house.
Yes, and we had to put the new roof
on. So
the
year before all of this shit happened.
2 years. 2 years before everything happened.
Right. Yeah. 2 years before the fire.
Two or three?
2. I put a brand new roof on the house.
Right.
So, I mean, everything that they tried to do to not have to pay, just a bunch of bullshit.
Yes.
And if you tried to do that and not pay your premium,
right,
they'd just cancel you.
Yes.
It's bullshit that you have to jump through these hoops. It's bullshit that you should have to hire an attorney to help you with any of this kind of stuff.
Right.
And in all honesty, the insurance commissioner is a joke. I mean, you file a complaint with them, and they don't really do anything. They don't have any power.
No.
They give them a bad review or a bad mark or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't punish them in any way.
No.
So without taking them to court, and my experience with court in this county, it's a crapshoot.
Yes.
You could have all of the evidence in the world and still lose. I've seen it happen to too many people.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's not a good system here, unfortunately.
So we finally figured out all of that, got all of that crap straightened out, and then, we're still trying to get everything taken care of.
When they first came back with the amount that they were going to cover the house, it didn't even cover what the original mortgage was, and you had to take out a second mortgage in order to put the roof on.
Right.
So the house was worth what you had out in mortgages. It wasn't like you had over mortgaged the house.
I wasn't upside down on the house. The house is worth $160,000.
Right. But you had
they were offering like $81,000.
Right. And the first mortgage was almost $100,000. It was like 98 or something like that. And then the second mortgage was like a 15,000 or somewhere around in there. I'm just rounding numbers. But yeah, and so they were nowhere near even what you had on the mortgages that they wanted to pay you for the house, and they just wanted you to take that and be done.
Right.
And then you could figure out how to fix it or what you were going to do with the house. And I'm like, how does that even work? You had...
Well, and when they sent the check, they wrote it to me and the bank, which they're legally allowed to do.
Right.
But then when they do that, you can't fix the house.
No.
The bank wants that to pay off the mortgage, and then you can take out a construction loan.
Right.
Which I couldn't do because we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes.
And the insurance company knew that. I mean, they were going out of their way to try and put obstacles to try and force me to settle. And so, I mean,
and not only that, but the bank flat out said because the check didn't cover what the full mortgages, the two mortgages cost, then you couldn't have gotten a construction loan because you'd still have part of a mortgage. You had to pay the mortgage off completely in order to get a construction loan on the property.
Right.
So they knew that as well. So the whole thing just stunk.
So the only good thing that came out of having had the coronavirus as early as I did is that, I had antibodies. I'd been donating that whole time all the way up through
Donating
August.
plasma, right.
Right. And then, so...
You donated well into October, I thought.
Could be. When I took this job at the second hotel, unfortunately, the people there started getting sick.
Right.
I'd already had it. I wasn't that worried about getting sick. I could cover all of those shifts.
Right.
So I was taking double shifts, working 7 days a week, holidays, anything and everything that I could, making as much money as I could to pay down that second mortgage. And we actually got to the point where we paid off that second mortgage.
Correct.
And then we also got a contractor who came much more forward with a much more detailed appraisal of what it would take to fix that house.
Right.
And between that and the attorney's help, got the insurance company to come up to, again, not, in my opinion, not what it should have been, but an acceptable number to where I'm not upside down. I'm not paying on a house.
Right. They came up to where because we also paid off a bunch on the main mortgage as well. And so they came up a little bit more to where then we could get that main mortgage paid off. So then you didn't have any mortgage left on the house.
Right.
With what they were giving you. But it didn't cover you basically paid out of pocket the $15,000 for the second from other job kind of thing, and then extra onto the main mortgage. So they still were short 20 to 30,000 ultimately.
Oh yeah, I agree. And here's the best part. The best part is that I specifically had replacement cost insurance because I knew somebody that had. I don't remember if they had a fire or a tornado or what had happened, but their house had been almost a total loss. And because they didn't have replacement cost, they only got like 3/4 of the house paid for, and they had to pay the rest out of pocket.
Right.
And the stuff in the house was given like if a table like this, if it cost $1,000, but it was 20 years old, they only gave them $200 for it.
Right.
You know? And I was like, well, I'm not ever going to have to go through that. I mean, I hope I never have a tornado or whatever. So I bought the replacement cost value. Yeah, the replacement cost value means shit.
Right.
So, and you only get that after you replace it.
Right.
So I couldn't replace the house because I didn't have that kind of money sitting around.
Right.
That's the only way that I could have gotten the full value of the insurance thing.
It's basically a reimbursement policy. You have to pay to have it all done, and then maybe they'll reimburse you.
Right.
Not for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a total joke, and it's a scam. And they charge you extra for it, and it's a joke.
Same thing with the contents, we found out, too.
Yes, which we still haven't settled on the contents.
No, and that'll be a whole nother podcast yet, I'm sure.
So we finally got them up to that point, but then the final sticking issue was we've agreed on this amount, but I'm concerned with cashing these checks, depositing these checks and paying off the mortgage because it says on the checks and on the sheet that comes with them that if you sign these, then that's settling in full.
Yeah, you're settling in full for the entire claim.
Right, but we haven't settled on the contents.
Right.
You know, and there was a couple other things too that still haven't been worked out yet.
Right.
So here it is, January, almost a year has gone by, and I'm still having to make payments on a house that nobody can live in.
Yep.
And again, anytime I have to deal with Scott, he's just an impossible job. I don't understand how he has a job there. I really don't.
He must be a completely different person with his colleagues. That's the only thing I can come up with.
If his bosses knew that that's how he talked to people, I find it hard that he could hide that, though.
Well, then maybe his bosses are the same way.
Could be.
But there is no boss. Remember, he is the top of the...
He is the top.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Most people who act like that to a customer act like that to everybody.
You would think.
So it's not like he was mansplaining to me because he was, I'm a guy.
Right.
Everybody that he taught, and our attorney has said several times.
Yes.
That's how he treated her.
Yes.
And she had to call him out on it several times, and then he'd get all defensive and say, "Why are you attacking me?"
Right.
He would try and, it's funny because everybody always talked about, through Trump's presidency about the narcissism. I mean, this guy, narcissistic to a T, the definition of it.
Yes.
Didn't matter who he was talking to, he knew better than everybody.
Right.
So I apologize about the random noises over there. We have a ghost. It's not the puppies this time. We gonna call Bill Murray pretty soon.
Ghostbusters.
Anyway, I think that's a good place
to pause. So we're not quite a year, and nothing's settled.
Right.
Really. So
and nothing else has been able to happen on the house.
Right, and we still don't have electricity. We don't have running water. The house is still getting flooded, even though, because we have fall rains here as well, so there's still flooding happening. And then in the winter, that's all freezing. I mean, it's a gross nightmare.
Yes, basically. and I'm having to maintain the grass and
the property,
all of that kind of stuff. So
yes.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode again. I'm sorry that it seems so confusing. We tried to do it in chronological order, but there's so much chaos with it.
There's so many moving pieces.
It's hard to keep it straight even for us.
Yes.
And I didn't want it to come off like a bullet point,
right?
Report either. So Again, I'm Don. This is Lachelle. We are Morrison Madness. Check us out on all the socials. If you have any comments or questions about any of this process, we're happy to try and answer anything that we can. And
we love to hear from you guys. So definitely like, comment, share, that kind of stuff. But feel free to comment too on Instagram or Facebook. If you're listening to the podcast, definitely check us out there and comment on stuff. Let us know what episode you're listening to so we know more about what we're talking about. But
maybe in the next episode, we'll talk more about the other... I lost my train of thought now. Damn it, Jim. This is what happens when the puppies go to sleep. I can't think straight. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll talk about, I guess, the next process of where we went from there. But, at this point, the house nothing's happening with it.
No, right. It's just sitting.
So,
yeah.
Again, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, take care.
Take care.